Hi, I'm Francisca.
And I'm Trini.
And in this video we will be comparing high schools in the United States to high schools in Argentina. Now that we have learned about high schools in the US, we feel like we can compare both systems. The school schedule is kind of different. Here in the US, kids go to school all day, and although that is the same in Argentina, but in private institutions, the rest of the schools that are public, you have to go either in the morning, which is from 8 to 12, or in the afternoon shift, that is from 1 to 5. Also, something that we talked about in class was the school cafeteria and how they tend to not be nutritious at all. Well, in Argentina, in public schools, since students don't stay to have lunch because they either leave at that time or come after that, they don't exist. But in some private schools where they do have to stay to have lunch, they either take their own lunch, or some schools do offer a meal plan, but it is only a meal. It's very different from here that you get to choose what to eat.
One thing that really stood out to me is how different the school schedule and overall focus are between the US and Argentina. In the US, students usually have a much more varied schedule. Classes change every day and they move between course subjects, electives, and extracurriculars. It feels like schools put a lot more efforts into offering optionals such as arts, sports, all as important as a part of the school experience. But in Argentina, the routine is much more structured and academic. We usually follow the same schedule every day. And while there are art and sports activities, they are often optional and happen outside school hours. The ones that happen in school, it's because they are private schools, but they are not as central to our education like in the US. What I've realized is that the American system really encourages self-discovery and creativity, trying out different interests before deciding on a path. That's exciting, but it also means that students might finish high school with very different levels of academic preparation. On the other hand, in Argentina, we get a strong academic base, especially in subjects like science and literature. What we don't have a chance to explore personal passions during school hours. In the end, both systems have their strengths. It just depends on what you value the most.
When it comes to extracurriculars in the United States, students have a wide variety of activities to choose from, apart from the main subjects that they have to do. I believe that these activities, that from what I learned, can include visual arts, performing arts, different clubs, physical education, cheerleading, or sports, encourage students to discover their personal interests and also their hobbies, and it gives a balance between school and studies to doing something other than studying and learning. In contrast, high school in Argentina typically follow a more structured schedule with a more strong emphasis on academic subjects such as mathematics, literature, and science, and elective courses are much less common. If you do want to do this, you have to go to an institution outside of school to pursue them, or in some private institutions you may have them included at school hours.
One of the biggest differences we've noticed between secondary education in Argentina and here is also the school environment and the way students interact with teachers. In Argentina, the atmosphere is usually more formal. The relationship that we have with our teachers tend to be more distant, at least in most schools. Here in the US, I've noticed that it's much more friendly and casual. Students often use their teacher's first name. At first, it felt a little stranger to me. But over time, I started preferring it much more than the way we do it in Argentina, because it feels like students feel more comfortable in a more informal environment. What shocked me the most about studying here in the US is the freedom that students have compared to Argentina. In the college, students often choose their own classes, have more flexibility in their schedules, so I can change it whenever I want, and even leave campus during lunch whenever you want actually. In contrast, in Argentine schools, you can't leave once you get there and you spend all day studying there. I think the US system is more fun because of the variety. It seems like students can explore whatever they want more freely, like music, art, or technology. But I think it can also be stressful because you have a lot of things to choose. In Argentina, even though the system is more rigid, it can sometimes feel more structured, or at least for me, less overwhelming in that sense. This comparison made me see how each system reflects different.
To me personally, what I learned about this is how much value American schools place on community and personal choices. From pep rallies to class elections, there's a big emphasis on expressing individuality and building school spirit. And in contrast, in Argentina, schools focus more on academic structure and tradition, like staying with the same classmates for years, or the emotional importance of the senior trip, that is a trip that all seniors do at the end of the year as a way to saying goodbye. Both systems reflect the values of our cultures, and comparing them made me appreciate the different ways students can grow, connect, and celebrate their school's experiences.